Part 48. Man at the Top of the Food Chain. Author, Xionglang Guo. Chapter 471. This is a knife without thickness, and the body of the cloaked man, no matter how strong his defense is, how high his density is, how thick and tight his skin is, his most microscopic structure is always composed of particles. As long as he is still a material, there will be gaps, and as long as there are gaps, the two-dimensional plane without thickness will cut into this gap. The gap between the body and the body is filled by the two-dimensional hand knife, and the electromagnetic force, strong force, weak force, and gravity between the particles are all blocked. The light-speed vibration hand knife is bounded by the elbow part, and it breaks instantly. The whole arm flies out at the speed of light and disappears. The two-dimensional hand knife does not rely on three-dimensional means such as strength and sharpness to cut. Because of this, there is nothing in the world that he cannot cut. He cuts from the molecular, atomic, electronic, and even smaller microscopic levels. With one knife, the cloaked man's arm was broken, and a huge wound was cut on his chest. He retreated quickly and looked at Li Anping in front of him in disbelief. This is the first time he was injured while using the energy of the yellow sun. Li Anping looked at the wounds on his body that were slowly healing and thought, does he really have the ability to regenerate? But his body strength is too high, and the energy required for regeneration is tens of thousands of times that of the other two people. But in front of the two-dimensional hand knife, physical strength is meaningless, and such a high-strength body becomes a burden that consumes energy. While thinking, Li Anping has already caught up and slashed at the cloaked man's head again. But this time, both the cloaked man and the green monkey beside him were well prepared. They did not use their bodies to resist, and directly used long-range attacks to deal with Li Anping. But next, whether it was an energy attack or a force field attack, under Li Anping's two-dimensional hand knife, they were all swiped and cut in half. Nothing can be cut, everything can be cut. Whether it is dimensionality reduction or absolute zero, no matter what attack, as long as they are still powered by the four forces of electromagnetic force, strong force, weak force, and gravity, as the cornerstone of starting, then they are generated by exchanging particles, and they cannot escape gravitons and gluons. Photons and bosons can be cut in half by Li Anping. For a moment, when the two men were at a disadvantage in the face of Li Anping, the blond man who had not made a move finally moved. The blond man raised his hands high, and a flame shot out from his palms. The blond man did not have the powerful strength and speed of the cloaked man, and without his physical strength, he could not punch at the speed of light. He did not have the strong regeneration power of the green monkey, and even his physical strength was only a few 100,000 tons. There was no way to use tricks such as dimensionality reduction and dimensionality increase. The only thing he had was energy, that is, chi, endless. Enough to create the world, enough to fill the entire universe. There was much more chi and energy than Li Anping, the cloaked man, and the green monkey combined. When these energies were converted into mass energy with unprecedented power, a terrible attack was born. The inexhaustible chi all over his body soon turned into an endless stream of flames, and then swept towards Li Anping and the other two in the form of a supernova explosion. The sky is shaking and the earth is shaking. Fire burns the sky. The move that originally needed to absorb the power of heaven and earth to release was completely completed by the endless chi in the blond man's body at this moment, because compared with the so-called power of heaven and earth, the chi contained in the blond man's body, both in quality and quantity, is countless times stronger. The so-called heaven and earth are also vulnerable in front of his move. It also allows him to release a unit lethality that is millions of times stronger than before. Boom! More than 1 trillion temperatures suddenly burst out, accompanied by various X-rays, gamma rays, infrared rays, and high-temperature gases, covering the entire galaxy at the speed of light, and also surrounded the location of Li Anping and the other two. Under this high temperature, except for the cloaked man, neither Li Anping nor the green monkey can easily maintain their bodies. Li Anping quickly stopped the molecular movement around him and maintained the temperature at about 1000 degrees. Facing this endless flame, the two-dimensional hand knife is useless. The green monkey was constantly burned and regenerated in the painful screams. But this pain not only did not weaken his fighting power, but turned into anger, greatly enhancing his strength. But this is just the beginning. With the supernova explosion created by the blonde man, the strong gamma rays burst out every minute with energy equivalent to the total radiation of the entire Milky Way for 200 years. There will be a foggy relic similar to a nebula here. The terrifying light will illuminate the universe of 12.9 billion light-years in 12.9 billion years, reaching the limit of observation distance of the universe, until the entire universe ends in 20 billion years. However, this trick of purely crushing the opponent with energy cannot kill Li Anping in front of him, nor can it kill the green monkey and the cloaked man. The green monkey roared, "Are you crazy?" In the endless burning, his body was filled with anger, and the gamma rays caused by the supernova explosion kept drilling into his body, making his green body bigger and bigger. "Stop," the cloaked man said, "if you continue to use this trick, the damage will be too great." The blonde man just smiled at their dissuasion. This is the battlefield specially selected by Green. The nearest planet with life is also millions of light-years away. When the next explosion affects those planets, it will be millions of years later. Who knows if those planets will still exist at that time and whether there will be people on them. Moreover, compared to those fragile lives, the blonde man was more concerned about the enemy in front of him, whether Li Anping in front of him could take his subsequent moves. Heaven and earth shaking, mountain and ghosts shocked. After the supernova explosion, everything turned into a pot of chemical soup, and the most powerful celestial weapon in the universe, the neutron star, was born. Powered by the blonde man's endless energy, the intensity of the supernova explosion far exceeded any explosion in the history of the universe. After the blonde man launched the mountain and ghosts shocked, the ability of this move to manipulate gravity was brought to the extreme, and with the residual power of the supernova explosion, a star, a white dwarf, a pulsating neutron star, a magnetar, and a quark star were born respectively. How could their power be comparable to the original 5 mountains in this move? These 5 celestial bodies collided with Li Anping and the other 2 from 5 directions at sublight speed. Of course, this speed could not really hit Li Anping, the green monkey or the cloaked man who were dodging at full speed. But the blonde man's goal was not to hit the other party, his goal was to make the 5 celestial bodies collide with each other and create an unprecedented black hole. Its power is difficult to estimate, and it is far greater than the space-time tunnel created by Li Anping and the green monkey before. To be continued, please search for Ocean literature. The novels are better and updated faster. Man at the Top of the Food Chain. Author, Xianglang Guo. Chapter 472. Looking at the dark image in front of him, Chaos Tide's face became more and more unfriendly. He suppressed his anger and said, "What a mess you made. Is the original not good? Why copy it?" On the green light ball, the light rolled and made an image of a middle finger. The 4 worlds thought, "Don't you think my copy is better than the original? And the Monkey King is in XX, Superman is in XX, and Xian is in XX. It sounds very catchy." Idiot Chaos Tide cursed in a low voice, and his face suddenly changed. Oh no, he was discovered. Stop him. The 3 top warriors of the multiverse may not have broken through to the 9th energy level and reached the realm of the devil, but their combat power is enough to compete with the current Li Anping. Just after the blonde man used a Shan 11 Gui Shenjing, time and space were mixed up by huge gravity and mass. The battlefield of the 4 people jumped directly out of this timeline and came to infinite time and space. The cloaked man was running at a speed beyond the speed of light. His speed was so fast that time faded from his body. This speed allowed him to go to any time point on any timeline and keep wandering in the long river of the world. The green monkey was attacking, his hands and feet were attacking frantically. Every time he punched and kicked, there were more after-images swaying behind him. He was communicating with each other at different time points on different timelines and fighting with Li Enping. The blonde man was exploding, the energy in his body was surging frantically, constantly creating explosions, just like the singularity explosion created the universe, attacking everything that happened in the universe from the source of everything, creating a new universe on top of a universe. Every second of explosion can attack the universe and time more than 10 billion years later. The battle between the four people. It was getting more and more intense. The cloaked man running on the timeline existed in all millions of universe years at the same time. His fist collided with Li Enping's fist 100,000 years ago, causing a nuclear explosion. His newly generated fist was cut off by Li Enping's two-dimensional hand knife 150,000 years ago, causing a meteorite that traveled at nearly the speed of light and destroyed a civilization. The green monkey's body was cut into pieces by Li Enping 20,000 light-years away. The meteor shower he caused will be observed by the people on Earth 20,000 years later, becoming a beautiful astronomical spectacle. Tens of thousands of monkey palms hit Li Enping's vest 10,000 years later, which directly led to all the green monkeys who were borrowed by Li Enping in every battle tens of thousands of years ago being blasted through the body by Li Enping's palm. The explosion created by the blonde man is still continuing. However, because of Li Enping's attack, the parameters and effects of the Big Bang are changing every minute and every second, which has led to the bifurcation of countless worlds in the future and the birth and death of countless parallel worlds. If their battle is compared, then the timeline is a branch, and every inch of the branch represents a time point, and they are like several snakes coiled on the branch, and the battle between snakes spans every inch of the branch. There is no causal relationship between the front and back of every inch of the branch. They are like a snake, crawling on an infinitely long timeline, fighting at every point in time. The time before and after has no meaning to them, and the cause and effect of their existence will not be affected by the flow of time. But the impact they caused in time and space. It continues to spread along the flow of time. They expanded the battle to infinite space and time. In the first year of Jinkong, 1129, the day of the peace talks between Song and Jin, an inexplicable explosion occurred on the grasslands in northern China. The entire land of the Jin kingdom and the Mobei grasslands all turned into thousands of miles of red soil. No one knew what happened, and the history of this world also reached another turning point. This explosion is called the Jinkong explosion. In 1626 AD. In the area near the Wanggongchang gunpowder depot in the southwest corner of Beijing City, a huge explosion with a radius of 750 meters and an area of 2.25 square kilometers broke out, with more than 20,000 casualties. This explosion, which was also caused by unknown reasons, strange phenomena, and huge disasters, was called the Apocalypse Explosion. In 1908, in the Ivanki Autonomous Region of Siberia, Russia, 800 kilometers northwest of Lake Baikal, a terrifying explosion equivalent to 500 atomic bombs or dozens of hydrogen bombs exploded at the same time, burning and falling more than 60 million trees in an area of more than 2,150 square kilometers. Although there were almost no casualties, this unprecedented explosion still shocked the world government and was called the Tunguska explosion. But the above explosions that occurred at different time periods on the Earth are just a corner of this multi-dimensional battle. This is a battle that spanned countless light years and countless years, and for the parties involved, it happened at the same time. It's not that their volume exceeds light years, nor that the duration of the battle exceeds millions of years, but the scope of this battle. Just like a person's finger points on a two-dimensional piece of paper, then the two-dimensional projection of the finger is a circle. Now as Li Enping and his four people fighting outside of time and space, they punched out, in addition to hitting what direction and what position, they also have an additional indicator of what time. In this battle that transcended time and space and was of unprecedented intensity, Li Enping's thinking and consciousness began to sublimate. In front of his eyes, data flowed like a waterfall, and timelines appeared in front of him like webs. Every time he flicked his fingers, he could feel the changes in fate and cause and effect. One world after another appeared in front of him, as if life had jumped out of the universe, stars, galaxies, the universe, everything flashed in his mind, and countless knowledge flowed in his brain. Until a world suddenly appeared. The changes in this timeline were so different. It was so beautiful and full of temptation. Li Anping's vision went dark, and his entire field of vision was filled with endless white light. Various vague people of light began to appear before his eyes. It's like this is a world made entirely of light. Welcome. Congratulations. Are you finally here? We've been waiting for you for a long time. Join us. Whether old, young, hot, or cold, countless voices exploded in Li Anping's mind like whispers with a tone full of temptation. They were so warm. They were so approachable that Li Anping couldn't help but want to join them. He grabbed his head, opened his eyes suddenly, and let out a silent cry. Endless white light spread from his eyes and mouth, as if something terrible was trying to escape from his body. Break free. There was a power that was so familiar yet so strange appeared in his body. Countless shouts resounded in his heart. Use it, this is your power. We are you and you are us. We are the world. We are the origin, we are the Tao, we are one, we are all things. Join us, join us, join us, join us. Li Anping glanced at the green monkey, and then flicked his finger. Like a rubber ball, the green monkey directly crossed a distance of hundreds of millions of light years to the other end of the universe, and was then directly stuffed into a neutron star. As the energy expands, the neutron star continues to change, bound by a completely tight string with no gaps. Then came the cloaked man. His left and right fists collided with each other billions of times per second, and with the infinite inertia brought by the speed of light, a galaxy starburst was directly blasted towards Li Anping. But Li Anping pointed out again, and the Milky Way starburst shattered like a bubble. Then the man in the cloak was hit between the eyebrows with a finger. When he reacted again, his body had been pulled to 15 billion years ago. In front of him, the Big Bang had not yet occurred, there was no concept of time and space, and his consciousness fell into chaos. Finally, there was the blonde man. Li Anping, whose body was gradually covered by white light, blew on him gently. The blonde man's body collapsed in an instant. Countless possibilities were superimposed at this moment, and every part of him spread to in every space on every timeline of the entire universe. He exists forever, but is equal to eternal death. The huge amount of information directly obliterates his active consciousness. In just 3 seconds, all 3 warriors were defeated, and it was only then that the tide of chaos and the thoughts of the 4 worlds hurriedly rushed to the battlefield. Tide of Chaos looked at Li Anping, who was gradually covered by white light, with an ugly face, white. A green light belt was placed on his shoulder, and the thought of the 4 worlds advised, don't be impulsive. It only lasted 3 seconds, and the white light reluctantly retreated into the depths of Li Anping's body. But at this time, Li Anping still didn't wake up. He was like a floating meteorite, falling towards the depths of the universe. Damn it, Chaos Tide said towards the 4 worlds, why is there a timeline in your universe that was invaded by the white universe? The thought of the 4 worlds emitted bursts of light green light and said slowly, it wasn't me, it was him who caught Bai's attention while traveling through time and space, just like a fish jumping out of the water to be seen. What should we do now? He seems to have withdrawn from the state just now. Tide of Chaos shook his head, waved his hand and released a green light. The green light enveloped Li Anping, and then dragged him over little by little. He then stretched out his palm, took out the earth that he had kept before, and dropped Li Anping, who was wrapped in green light, into the earth in his palm. I want to take him to the Sea of Chaos and find a way to change him back. The last bit of humanity prevented him from taking that step. Now two different bifurcated states intersect in his body. I must prevent him from being integrated into the white universe. The light on Four Worlds thought flashed and he said, "It's not good to just take away my planet like this, right? Why don't you give him to me? I promise that when I return it to you, he will have become the 13th demon god." Haha, the 13th demon god, is it the copycat demon king or the CV god? Tide of Chaos mocked, "If it weren't for you, you would have casually changed your 3 warriors into a mess, causing the war in the universe to change. It has become a time and space war, how could it have such an outcome? I haven't settled the score with you yet, but you are asking me to take advantage of it." Chaos Tide looked at the earth in his palm again and murmured, "And this human being is no longer something you can modulate. In terms of the nature of life, there is no absolute difference between him and our 12 demon gods. If you touch him, be careful when he wakes up and turns you into a specimen. How about you be called the Lord God?" Humph! The thought of the 4 worlds hummed twice and did not speak. The Chaos Tide ignored the thought of the 4 worlds and turned into a beam of green light and disappeared. Only a broken universe was left, waiting for the thought of the 4 worlds to repair itself. To be continued. Please search for Ocean Literature, the novels are better and updated faster. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Seong Lang-go. Chapter 473. 7 years later, Earth. October 3rd. Today, the Shendi Mountain to the west of Tianjin City is full of bustling crowds. Human beings who are usually accustomed to using teleportation or flying to travel, today on the God Emperor Mountain, all relied on their feet to climb to the top of the God Emperor Mountain step by step. This is a rule spontaneously formed out of respect for the God Emperor Li Anping. A beautiful girl was wearing a uniform of blue skirt and white top. Her name was Zhu Xiaoxiu, and she was a freshman at Royal First College. Originally, the 10 major ability academies in the Eastern continent, with the exception of Academy City, were all classified into Royal Academies number 1 to 9, each recruiting people with different innate abilities. Because it only recruits those with natural abilities, such as martial arts training and magic training, the number of all students is less than that of other schools, but the quality of teaching is also higher. It is the place with the most elites in all mankind except Academy City. Zhu Xiaoxiu came here with her family today to celebrate the birthday of God. This can be regarded as a tradition on the earth. Every year on October 3rd, Li Anping's birthday, there will be a public holiday. On this day, people from all over the solar system will come to the top of the God Emperor Mountain to worship God. Pray in front of the statue of the Emperor. Zhu Xiaoxiu climbed to the top of the mountain panting, her cheeks looking red. At this time, the square on the top of the mountain was already crowded with people, and the 500-meter-high white statue stood in the center of the square. Such a high-level icon may have been a miracle in ancient times, but now it can be constructed using nano-worms in just a few hours. Looking at the holy statue with sword-shaped eyebrows and starry eyes in front of her, wearing a robe, Zhu Xiaoxiu closed her eyes, clasped her hands together, and muttered words, not knowing what she was praying for. Cut. Just then, a voice rang in Zhu Xiaoxiu's ears. It was the voice of a boy. He looked at Zhu Xiaoxiu with contempt. When he saw Zhu Xiaoxiu turning her head to look at him, she turned her head again. The little boy was about 5 or 6 years old. He had black hair and black eyes, and his skin was very white and tender. However, the arrogant look in the other person's eyes made everyone who saw him feel sincerely unhappy. What are you cutting? Zhu Xiaoxiu was also an outgoing and lively girl. She saw the little boy looking at her with contempt. He asked with a curious look on his face. The little boy rolled his eyes coolly and said, "Auntie, whatever you are thinking is written on your forehead, please don't be so wretched." You already have wives and children, and you still lust after others. Zhu Xiaoxiu was stunned and immediately realized that the kid in front of her was not yet 18 years old, and could not be a policeman or government employee. He definitely did not have the authority to use mind-reading abilities. It was obvious that this kid was a natural. Just read her mind. Thinking that all the love words she secretly said to the holy statue in her heart were heard by the kid in front of her, Zhu Xiaoxiu's face turned red and dry. How can you do this and just listen to what others say in their minds? The little boy said in an old-fashioned way, college students nowadays are really becoming more and more open-minded. Halfway through, the little boy suddenly looked around. It's like discovering something. Behind Zhu Xiaoxiu, his family members also called her again. She turned around and said hello to her family members, trying to teach the kid a lesson. Only to find that the other party had disappeared. She turned around and looked around, only to find that at some point, many men in black clothes and black trousers appeared around her. There are many ability users, are they the Imperial Guards? Zhu Xiaoxiu felt strange. As a student of the Royal First Academy, although she is not a combat-type ability user, she is still familiar with the abilities of ability users and some common ability user departments. As the ability users to defend the palace, the Imperial Guard generally selects people with relatively strong defense capabilities and particularly high obedience and discipline. They should be stationed in the palace all year round. Just when she was wondering, a man in black walked up. With a flash of his palm, a work permit and photo appeared in front of Zhu Xiaoxiu with a 3D projection effect. It was the Imperial Guard who had retrieved their own work certificate through nanobugs. It had the word Zopulse written on it, as well as a long list of job titles. As for the other photo, it was the photo of the little boy just now. Zhou Mai pointed at the photo and said, "Hello, have you met this little boy just now?" Zhu Xiaoxiu was stunned for a moment, but thinking about the identity of the other party's Imperial Guard, she still answered truthfully, "I have seen it." Zhu Mei nodded, and the next moment, a communication request suddenly sounded on Zhu Xiaoxiu's personal terminal in the Xianwang. It was the Imperial Guard in front of him who wanted to talk to Zhu Xiaoxiu in the mysterious net in order to keep it secret. Zhu Xiaoxiu immediately chose to agree with her consciousness, and then they were able to have a long-distance conscious conversation through the Xianwang. Just as Zhu Xiaoxiu was talking to Zhou Mai, a blue lightning flashed above the head of the more than 500-meter-high holy statue, and the little boy who had been talking to Zhu Xiaoxiu appeared on top of the holy statue. At a height of 500 meters and the hugeness of the icon, people below could not see the boy in the middle of the statue's head. TCH, they are indeed here. No one can call up the monitoring information of all nanobugs after living in Xinao. There are so many people here, and some of them are looking for them, the little boy said to his side. "Xiaohui, we're ready to leave. Uncle Zhou will come over in person, there's no way the jump gate can stop us." Beside the little boy was a little girl with white hair and porcelain-like skin. The little girl looked only 4 or 5 years old. When she heard what the little boy said, she pouted and said with red eyes, "Brother, are we really leaving? I miss my mother." "Xiaohui, why are you crying again?" The little boy scratched his head and said with a troubled look, "Then you go back, I'll go alone." No, hearing that the other party was going to leave her alone, the little girl immediately grabbed the little boy's hand, sniffed and said, "I won't cry, brother, don't leave me." "Okay, crybaby." Seeing the little girl's pitiful appearance, the little boy smiled helplessly, rubbed her little head and said, "Don't worry, we will be back soon, and at most we will be scolded by our mother." Being touched on the head by the little boy, Xiaohui looked like a cat, showing an expression of enjoyment. Hearing what the other party said, he nodded heavily. "Yes. While they haven't noticed our target yet, use your ability to go to the warp gate," the little boy said as he carried Xiaohui on his back. Xiaohui, who was lying on the boy's back, stretched out his hands and drew a graceful gesture in the air, chanting, "Habarulai." Habarulai, cha-cha-cha. The whole process of Xiaohui was like a child playing a game and chanting a spell, but even such a naughty gesture and spell had an effect. A white light flashed and the two disappeared. To be continued, please search for Ocean Literature. The novel is better and updated faster. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xionglang Go. Chapter 474. In Tianjing's underground base, the original boundary traveling gate has been blocked. Anna stood there with a face full of anxiety. Zhou Mai comforted her, "Don't worry, Lord Baizing has received the news and will find them." Although Anna has been Li Anping's wife for many years, she has never been aware of the royal family and has never had any heirs. However, after learning about the behavior of the two brats cheating on her family, she immediately became anxious and angry, and then she personally joined the hunt. Middle. The two brats from the Jiao family are naturally Li Anping's children. The black-haired young lady is called Li Nian, the son of Li Anping and Anna. The little Lolita with white hair is called Li Sisi, her nickname is Xiaohui, and she is the daughter of Xia Yunyun and Li Anping. Originally, Li Sisi was conceived before Li Nian, but Li Sisi stayed in Xia Yunyun's belly for 2 full years before she was born 1 year later than Li Nian and became her younger sister. Seeing Anna's anxious look, Xia Yunyun on the side comforted her, "It's okay, those two brats are very powerful. Ordinary level 5 ability users will fall into trouble if they are not careful. As long as they don't leave the city, there will be no problem." "I know, but this is the first time they have gone out so far. If they are outside the range of Xianwang at this point," Anna frowned again. She is already in her 30s, but due to the maintenance of nanobugs and her own cultivation, she still looks as young and beautiful as she did when she was 20. She does not look like a person who has a son at all. At this time, his brows furrowed, which made people feel even more distressed. "Found them." At this moment, Wang Kei's voice rang in everyone's ears, and a video file was launched directly to everyone's personal terminals through Xianwang. At this time, Xianwang has already become the second world and the basis of life for the entire human race. In addition to being able to call nanobugs in the real world based on authority and electronic currency, the virtual network composed of Xianwang allows everyone to connect to the virtual world of the network through consciousness every minute. But because of Li Anping's absence, except for Zhinao, no one can mobilize the surveillance data of the entire Earth, so even Anna and Xia Yunyun can only find Li Nian and Li Sisi through the base's own surveillance methods. However, Li Nian has strong electromagnetic ability. Not only can he read people's thoughts based on their radio waves, but he can also control most mechanical equipment, making their search even more troublesome. 5 minutes ago, a white light flashed, and Li Nian appeared in a corner near the leap gate with Li Sisi on his back. In less than a second, Li Nian had already recorded in his mind the scene of the entire hall in front of him, including everyone's position. The direction of each monitoring instrument. "Sit tight." Yes, Xiao Hui nodded obediently, hugged Li Nian's neck with both hands, and closed his eyes tightly. The next moment, a lightning-fast feeling hit their faces, and clusters of tiny blue electric lights flickered on the two of them. Like a breeze, they followed the Daxia Lonke warriors directly into the jump gate. A group of Daxia Lonke warriors disappeared into the blue light of the folding gate, and no one noticed. I don't know when 2 more boys and girls were added to the Blu-ray. After arriving at the moon base through the jump gate, Li Nian felt his steps sink and the burden on his body became heavier. He knows this is because the gravity of the moon base is twice that of the Earth, and there are even some dangerous areas. The gravity is more than 100 times that of the Earth. But despite this, his body only sank slightly, and he quickly carried Xiao Hui on his back through the corridors of the moon base in a high-gravity environment. It didn't take long for him and Xiao Hui to adapt. However, this time was different from the direct sprint just now. Li Nian was like an assassin, always able to hide back and forth in the shadows and corners, carefully avoiding batches of soldiers and surveillance equipment. The little boy on his back also had a serious look that he dared not show off, his eyes widened. From Li Nian's actions, it is obvious that he must have received a considerable degree of stealth training. Whether it is speed, skill, or psychological quality, he is comparable to an ordinary agent. But this is the moon base after all, the gathering place for all the elite warriors of mankind. Just when Li Nian was hiding in a corner again with Xiao Hui on his back, a man's voice appeared directly behind him. "Why did you two come to the moon base?" The man approached the two of them silently, and the sudden sound startled Li Nian and Xiao Hui. As soon as Li Nian turned around, he found that Yan Bei had appeared behind him at some unknown time, looking at them with some confusion. "Yan, Uncle Yan," Li Nian said awkwardly. The little dog on his back stared at Yan Bei pitifully like a puppy. Suddenly Li Nian rolled his eyes and said, "Uncle Bai is going to train us today. The training location is the White Land." White Earth, Yan Bei frowned, and had already started to contact Bai Xing, who was in charge of White Earth, through the mysterious network. But Li Nian wanted the other party to be distracted for a moment, because he knew that no matter what lie he told, Yan Bei could immediately expose the lie through the Xianwang, so what he wanted was just a moment of distraction. In the moment when Yan Bei was distracted, a ball of lightning had already lit up on Li Nian's body. The lightning not only spread to his body, but also spread to Xiao Hui's body without hindrance. The lightning flashed, the sonic boom sounded, and the two of them had already rushed towards the distance at supersonic speed. The thundering sound of their feet even alarmed the surrounding warriors. These two little ghosts. It's a pity that Yan Bei couldn't use his ability to attack the two. Just after he quickly caught up, the traces of the two disappeared in just one corner. At this time, he had also contacted Zhou Mai and others on Earth, as well as Bai Xing on the White Land. "Really? I just met them." But Xiao Hui used his ability to teleport away. Just after he finished talking to a few people, another message was transmitted to the personal terminals of several human leaders. At the edge of the solar system, an electromagnetic wave signal of unknown origin was discovered. On the other side of the gate, the White Land was also undergoing various changes. On the White Earth, humans built a city called Kaoj, or a base, with the first discovered gate as the center. Within a radius of 100,000 kilometers around this base, humans were divided into 7,200 sectors. Most of these sectors are barren land. A small number of them are inhabited by some native races of the White Earth, most of whom have been exterminated by humans. In addition, there are many unstable time and space areas. Humans have set up many gates through the method left by Li Enping. Most of these gates lead to harsh cosmic environments, uninhabited starry skies, and a void of nothingness, but there are also a few resource stars with rich materials, and even life planets like magic stars, which breed unique civilizations. However, although these planets have their own characteristics, their civilizations all dominate the opposite side of the gate, but facing the sweeping humans, they have no resistance and can only become colonies of the human army one by one. Among them, there are modern societies similar to the Earth, continents still under the rule of feudal dynasties, martial arts civilizations that can release sword and knife energy, and fantasy worlds with vampires, werewolves, etc. Humans followed the orders left by Li Enping. While constantly improving their own strength, they continued to expand their territory and brought all civilizations and races under their rule. Most of the civilizations have almost no resistance to the current humans. Just the floating warships. It is enough to crush most of the nations, not to mention the high-level ability users, plus the warriors in interstellar armor, such warriors. Just the armor on the body is that those civilizations can't even break the defense. However, a few, like magic civilizations, have large differences in individual strength. Strong people with the 5th energy level and above destructive power will pose a greater threat to the Earth civilization, but it only takes more effort. After all, After 7 years of explosive development on Earth, everyone is already an ability user. Ordinary people either practice secret martial arts or magic. The average level of high school graduates this year is 2.4. Moreover, with the help of high technologies such as nanoworms and quantum computers, in addition to many more level 5 users, all the original level 5 users who were originally gifted have now become level 6 users. Among them, Zinc has become the first level 7 user in the human race, sitting in the White Land all year round to prevent the attacks of demons. Now, in the sky 200,000 kilometers west of Kaoj City, a huge palace that spreads hundreds of kilometers is slowly floating towards Kaoj. At the edge of the palace, Shang Tian, wearing a purple and gold Taoist robe, stood on the cloud, looking deeply in the direction of Kaoj City, even though he could not see anything from the position where he stood. Shang Tian, who had already broken through the nascent soul stage, was only about 10 years old at this time, but after the physical body remodeling of the nascent soul stage, he now looked no different from a young man in his 20s. His ability allows him to communicate with himself in countless timelines, bringing him incomparable information and intelligence, and also makes him equivalent to having countless wise teachers to guide him, and being able to get countless adventures, and making remarkable progress. Even in the Xixiao Palace behind him, in this force where geniuses are everywhere, he has become one of the 10 true disciples. But he still has hatred in his heart. He hates Li Enping, and he also hates himself for not being able to awaken his ability earlier and save his family. He hates himself even more for not being able to suppress Li Enping and can only use the most cowardly method to deal with him. Looking at the direction of Kaoj City, he murmured, "I'm back, Li Enping, are you ready? Welcome my anger. Welcome this hatred that stretches through endless time and space. You will become a sharp sword in my hand, and all human beings will accept my rule. I am the king of mankind, and you are just a cancer in the multiverse." While he was muttering to himself, a Taoist soldier in golden armor walked behind him and reported, "Big brother, the head teacher asked you to go to Shangqing Palace for a discussion." Got it. Shang Tian waved away the Taoist soldier casually, and finally took a deep look in the direction of Kaoj City and disappeared. To be continued, please search Ocean Literature. The novel is better and updated faster. Man at the Top of the Food Chain. Author, Xionglang Guo. Chapter 475. Shang Tian walked slowly towards the Shangqing Palace. This Xixiao Palace, which seems to cover only a few dozen kilometers, actually contains countless large and small spaces inside. If all of them are folded open, it is estimated that it is as large as 10 Earths. Even if Shang Tian wants to walk to the Shangqing Palace now, it will probably take several months. However, there is a solution inside the Xixiao Palace. The ubiquitous teleportation array is specifically designed to shorten the distance inside the Xixiao Palace. But even so, after changing 12 teleportation arrays in a row and spending 15 minutes, Shang Tian finally stepped into the Shangqing Palace. This is the most important meeting hall of the Xixiao Palace. Every time something big happens in the sect, the elders of the sect and the 10 true disciples will be summoned to discuss the matter. The so-called 10 true disciples are not arranged according to the strength of the disciples, or they come from any competition. The 10 true disciples are personally selected by each of the previous true disciples. They must go through 5 tests, namely, Tao Heart, Tao Nature, Root, Aptitude, and Luck. They must make enough contributions to the sect, make various contributions, and get the consent of the head teacher and the 5 elders of Xixiao before they can become candidates for true disciples. Then, after breaking through to the nascent soul realm, the previous generation of true disciples can become the new generation of true disciples and practice the 10 fundamental magical powers of Xixiao Palace after becoming Yuan Shengenren. Among them, the true disciples of each lineage can only practice one of the 10 fundamental magical powers. Only after becoming Yuan Shengenren can 2 more fundamental magical powers be selected. Only the head teacher and the 5 elders of Zixiao of each generation can practice more than 5 fundamental magical powers. The strict selection of true disciples by Zixiao Palace and the careful inheritance of the 10 fundamental magical powers show the power of these 10 magical powers and the importance of the status of true disciples. The 10 true disciples can be said to be the backbone of Zixiao Palace and the future leadership. The process of becoming the 10 true disciples is also an extremely difficult process. It usually takes at least 70 to 80 years. It is not uncommon to take as long as 100 to 200 years. But just 2 years ago, a young man named Shangtian became a true disciple of the Ascension Hall of Zixiao Palace and one of the 10 true disciples in just 5 years. This mythical speed is surprising, but it is within the expectations of most people in the know. Slowly walking into the Shangqing Hall, the other 9 true disciples have already arrived. The position of the head teacher and the positions of several other elders are still vacant. A girl in ancient costume waved to Shangtian and said, "Xiaotian, come here quickly, we are just talking about you." Shangtian smiled modestly, just like an ordinary dull boy, carefully hiding his edge, and walked to the girl and sat down. The girl's name is Hua Beihe, a true disciple of the Star Hall of Zixiao Palace. She looks only in her 20s. In fact, the years she has spent since she achieved the nascent soul have exceeded 700 years. Seeing Shangtian sitting over, she asked, "This time, the heavenly court ordered us to retake the earth. Xiaotianer, you are from the earth, tell us about the earth." "Senior Sister Hua, can you please stop calling me Xiaotianer?" Shangtian smiled bitterly. "I have already reported the information about the earth to the Master and the Heavenly Court, and they summoned us here today. They are probably talking about this matter, and you will just listen to what they say later. Hey, you are only 10 years old. Don't think that you are really an adult just because you look like an adult." Hua Beihe knocked on Shangtian's head and said, "To me, you are Xiaotianer. Xiaotianer, tell me what the earth is like. I heard that they are all mortals there, but those mortals have no magic power, but they can also go up to the sky and the sea. I stay in the small fairyland to practice all day, and I am bored to death. Why don't you tell me about the earth to relieve my boredom?" "Okay, Lily, don't embarrass him." On the other side, a heroic young man with a long sword on his back said, "I think the heavenly court asked him to keep it secret, so he can't say it." Shangtian smiled, bowed to the heroic young man and said, "Thank you, Senior Brother Jianhui." But no one could find that there was always a hint of coldness in the depths of his gentle smile. This young man called Jianhui is a true disciple of Wan Jianfeng of Zixiao Palace. He has been a true disciple for the longest time among the current 10 true disciples, and his cultivation is enough to rank in the top 3 among the 10 true disciples. Hua Beihe pouted when she heard them say this, and didn't ask any more questions. Soon after, the elders of Zixiao Palace came to Shangqing Palace one by one. Some of them came by flying swords, some came by turning into light, some directly broke through the air, or sent their own disciples or even spirit beasts as representatives. About 2 hours later, except for the head of Zixiao Palace and the 5 elders of Zixiao, all the talents arrived one by one. The reason why it took so long was related to the time concept of the people in Zixiao Palace. Because their lifespans were hundreds or thousands of years, each retreat might be hundreds of years, which made their time concept completely different from that of Earthlings. 2 hours of waiting time was no different from more than 10 minutes for them. No one showed any impatience during the waiting process, and some people even took the time to practice during the waiting process. And those who did not come in person were also traveling outside or practicing in seclusion. Finally, a white-haired man wearing a purple crown and purple robe walked into the Shangqing Palace. Behind him were 5 men and women of different shapes. They were the ultimate power of the Zixiao section, Zixiao Wu Lao. Including the headmaster of the Zixiao sect, these 6 people are all above the real Yuan Shen. Their cultivation has reached the level of heavenly beings who have transformed into voids. They are only one step away from the transformation of heavenly beings. Each of them has the ability to capture the stars and the moon. The power to move mountains and seas. At the same time, the Earth is obviously not aware of this expeditionary force on the white land. They are focusing their efforts on deciphering electromagnetic signals found at the edge of the solar system. A non-commissioned officer pointed to the star map on the command room, which is the location at the edge of the solar system, and said, "It is here that we discovered electromagnetic signals, and according to the latest intelligence, we also found a large amount of residual thermal radiation. There should be a vacuum in the universe, and thermal radiation is like stars in the dark night, so obvious in the vacuum of the universe." After hearing the sergeant's report, SpecialAbilities frowned and said, "Have you checked the recent aerospace records? Is there a civilian spacecraft passing by?" "We have checked the aerospace records of the past 6 months, and there are no civilian or military spacecraft routes passing there. The staff suspects that an unknown spacecraft is approaching the solar system." To be continued. Please search for Ocean literature, novels, better updates faster. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, SpecialAbilities. Chapter 476. Just when an anomaly was discovered on the Earth, it took 7 years for the Silver Shadow Empire fleet to finally reach the outer reaches of the solar system and began to collect information on the people on Earth. Just after waking up from the sleep cabin, Fleet Commander Russell shook his uncomfortable neck, exhaled, and asked viciously, "How is it? How many resource stars are there in this galaxy, and are there any indigenous people?" Being sent by the Empire to this barren and remote star field was already a big unlucky thing for him. If he couldn't harvest anything here, it would be even more unlucky. He has wasted more than 10 years in vain without reasoning. He can't blame the superheroes in the entire Empire now. There must be something wrong with Reinhardt. The adjutant on the side said, "According to the results of the detection array, this galaxy has a total of 1 star, 8 planets, and 173 satellites. There are a total of 32 planets that can be used as resource stars. Traces of intelligent life have been found on 7 of the planets." He pointed at the star map in front of him, and after holding his hands for a moment, the 3rd planet in the solar system appeared in front of Russell. This planet has the largest number of people among them. At present, it seems that their appearance is similar to ours, and their body structure it is also very close and should also belong to the human race. "Is it also a human race?" Russell nodded. "This is not the first time that the Silver Shadow Empire has encountered a human race. Although they look similar, Russell will not regard these natives as his own race. They are slaves or cannon fodder. The best place to stay." "How civilized are they?" The adjutant said, "The photon brain has been connected to their electronic circuits. At present, it seems that they have set up an internal network and are connecting to the language library to translate their information. However, it is conservatively estimated that they already have the most rudimentary interstellar colonization capabilities. In addition to this planet, the 2 planets and 4 satellites that have found signs of civilization should be their colonial stars. We have just started to colonize the planets in the planetary system." "Does that mean they are very weak?" Roland sneered. "Let the people in the engineering class quickly open the Stargate and create artificial wormholes. I don't want to waste several years on the return journey. On the way. As for the humans in this planetary system," Russell pointed to the position of the Earth on the star map and said, "Send a Hound-class spacecraft to their main star and give them a month to surrender unconditionally." The reason why only a small spaceship was sent into the solar system was because the fleet of the Silver Shadow Empire was too massive. If it entered the planetary system rashly, it would cause changes in the gravity of the entire planetary system. But even so, an Imperial Hound-class spaceship is 22 kilometers long, with the main gun and protective cover mounted on it. It was enough to sweep away these country people in front of me. Thinking of this, Russell added another sentence, also, let them not go too far. I still need these natives to help us find things. With technology that has surpassed thousands or even tens of thousands of years, the Empire's expeditionary forces always have a bad attitude towards various indigenous civilizations, and various incidents of cruel nature, such as killings and insults, occur one after another. Russell had no intention of restraining his subordinates, he just asked them not to go too far. On the other side, the Earth has also noticed some of the other parties' movements. Sir. According to Zhineo's report, the other party has connected to our network. Sir, they sent a spacecraft into the solar system, heading towards the Earth. It will arrive in about 10 hours. Block their network connection. SpecialAbilities frowned and said, send 10 unmanned detection ships to meet them and send them signals to find out their intentions. Also, how is their spaceship technology? In the command room, a large amount of data on the opponent's spacecraft based on detection was displayed. This expeditionary force of the Silver Shadow Empire has a total of more than 2 million spaceships. The largest main ship is 500 kilometers long. The smaller ships are about 100 kilometers away, and the largest remaining ones are the type of warships that Russell calls the Hound class, which is about 2 million ships. According to the intelligence brain's analysis of the opponent's movements, the opponent may also have force field shield technology, controllable wormhole technology and curvature engine technology. When these data appeared in front of everyone, SpecialAbilities also frowned deeply. The technological level of the other party is unsurprisingly high. An alien civilization capable of intergalactic navigation cannot have weak technological means. Although it is not yet known how their technological level compares to humans, but it is just the curvature engine technology. You can be sure that they are definitely not simple. There is also the number. It is necessary to find out whether more than 2 million spaceships are more or less in the eyes of the opponent, whether they are full strength or vanguard. Just when these things flashed through SpecialAbilities' mind and he forgot all about his great-granddaughter Chiao's family, the other party had already sent another electromagnetic wave signal. Sir, it's the Daxia language, the adjutant beside SpecialAbilities said. The other party has already analyzed our language. What did they say? The adjutant said hesitantly, they said surrender or perish. Then, another large section of the signal was captured by the Earth's army. Humans of Earth, we are the 23rd Expeditionary Team of the Galaxy Legion of the Silver Shadow Empire. In 10 hours, our Hound-class spacecraft will stay over your home planet. You have 1 month to prepare for unconditional surrender and then accept it. Our domination. You will be fortunate enough to become part of the Empire's territory. Thank you for the Empire's kindness, Earthlings. Just when humans first came into contact with alien civilizations in this universe, in Kaoj City, Li Nian and Lisa C were happily walking around the Kaoj market. Unlike the Earth, the entire planet has been covered by mysterious nets and nanobugs. All shopping, work, and life can be carried out in the virtual world. In Kaoj City, there are no densely populated nanoworms, and you still need to use a personal computer or communicator to access the internet. Moreover, in addition to the Earthlings in Kaoj City, there are many other immigrants who came to Kaoj City to do business, work, or cooperate with the Earthlings after being colonized by the Earthlings. Among them were businessmen, officials, and royalty. There are knights carrying sword cases and robes, and mages holding staffs and wearing high hats. There are even subraces of people with wolf heads and human bodies, elves with pointed ears and slender bodies. Kaoj City is the center of jump gate transmission among the 7,200 nearby sectors. Its superior geographical location and the good order maintained by humans have made it the best area for communication between countless worlds, and it has also become the largest and busiest market. In this city, humans on Earth are the undisputed kings. To be continued, please search Ocean Literature. The novels will be better and updated faster. Man at the top of the food chain author, Seong Lang Go. Chapter 477. Li Nian took his sister to walk in the market of Kaoch City, looking at all kinds of strange goods in the stalls and shops, with curious eyes. Xiao Hui hid behind Li Nian honestly, and his eyes were also attracted by the various races in front of him. Suddenly, a fur ball that looked like a puppy appeared on the corner of the street. A pair of big eyes on the fur ball looked at Xiao Hui. The cute appearance like a plush toy immediately attracted Xiao Hui's attention. She squatted down and reached out to touch the little fur ball. The fur ball that was touched trembled, and the snow-white fur all over the body slowly turned pink, as if embarrassed. Xiao Hui giggled. But the next moment, the fur ball swelled to the size of a watermelon, and an old voice said angrily, "Human, what are you touching? Do you have any manners? I am not your pet." It turned out that he turned pink not because he was shy, but because he was angry. Xiao Hui stuck out his tongue. Sorry. He immediately jumped and hid behind Li Nian. Li Nian smiled and touched Xiao Hui's head, then walked deeper into the market. They came here mainly to find a team that could take them out of the city, in order to find Li Enping, who had left the earth for 7 years, and their father. However, after walking a few hundred meters and seeing the man in front of him, Li Nian knew that his plan to run away from home had failed. Bai Xing walked in front of Li Nian and said coldly, "Take Xiao Hui back by yourself, and then stay in the gravity room for 72 hours. Hearing Bai Xing's words, Li Nian, who was only 7 years old, showed a nervous look on his white and tender face, but he still controlled himself and did not move. Since he was born, all things related to fighting, ability, and martial arts were learned from the man in front of him. He had no memory of his father at all. In comparison, Bai Xing in front of him, as his teacher and master, was more majestic in front of him. He was also the only person he was afraid of in this world. But he still bit the bullet, and the whole person turned into a flash of lightning and retreated quickly. Bai Xing looked at Li Nian, who was fleeing at a high speed, without any surprise. He just pursed his lips slightly and took a step to catch up. He knew that Li Nian could use part of the electromagnetic drive ability since he was born, and as his body gradually developed and as time passed, his electromagnetic drive ability became stronger and stronger. At present, among all the human beings on the earth, there is no level 4 ability user who can defeat him. Even among the level 5 ability users, if they don't restrain him, it will take a lot of effort to fight. And it's not just combat ability. Li Nian's memory, comprehension, and logical ability are all terrible. Coupled with Bai Xing's careful teaching, he can use his ability 200% in battle. But it is this genius qualification that makes the opponent more difficult to control. You are really your son. It's hard to imagine what he will become when he grows up. He should be a good opponent. For Bai Xing, the feeling of cultivating Li Nian is like creating a powerful opponent for himself, which makes him full of interest. He sighed in his heart, but his hands did not slow down at all. As soon as he moved, the whole earth seemed to shake under his feet. Not only was the earth shaking, but in Li Nian's feeling, the other party took a step. Then he stretched out his hand, and there was an overwhelming momentum that enveloped the void in all directions. It was a power that dominated the world. Even people's hearts, time and space, and cause and effect were distorted. But Li Nian was not surprised at all. Bai Xing was his teacher, so he naturally knew the horror of the other party. The other party was like the king of gods who was irresistible, high above, and in control of everything. With one move, not only Li Nian's mind was oppressed in various ways, but even the various races in the market and around him fell to the ground and fainted under Bai Xing's grab. They couldn't stand Bai Xing's momentum and fell into a self-protective coma. And Li Nian's body was fully activated, and the whole body was full of lightning, just like a jet plane, retreating rapidly to the rear at twice the speed of sound. But even at such a fast speed, Li Nian still felt a sense of absurdity that the world was so big that there was no place to hide when he looked at the palm approaching him inch by inch. But just when Bai Xing's palm was about to grab Li Nian's body, there was a series of crackling sounds, and Li Nian's body had disappeared. It turned out that this was actually his electromagnetic clone. Through the combination of air, moisture, light, and electromagnetic force, the result was so real that it was indistinguishable from the real thing. Li Nian, who was 200 meters away, smiled triumphantly while running, but before his smile was gone, a palm had already covered his body again. With a crackling sound, Bai Xing grabbed Li Nian's shoulder through the air, and Li Nian felt that the electric light all over his body was shattered by the other party's shaking, and the electromagnetic force was instantly dispersed, but his body was not damaged at all. This time the electromagnetic force suddenly disappeared, but he himself was still running at a high speed, causing his footsteps to be unstable, and he fell to the ground with Xiao Hui on his back. But the next moment, a gentle force lifted the two of them up. Bai Xing held Xiao Hui in one hand and grabbed Li Nian with the other hand like a chicken, scolding, "Running away from home with your sister, is this what you should do?" Li Nian felt as if his whole body was locked by a strong force, and he could no longer exert his electromagnetic drive ability. When Xiao Hui heard Bai Xing's scolding, Xiao Qiang wrinkled her nose and said in fear, "Uncle Bai, don't blame me. It's Xiao Hui who wants to see his father." Bai Xing didn't scold Xiao Hui much, but said softly, "Okay, Xiao Hui, let your brother take you back." Then he said to Li Nian with a straight face, after sending Xiao Hui off, "Don't forget yourself. Go to the gravity room and I will help you with special training in the next 2 days." When he heard the word special training, Li Nian's body trembled, as if he thought of something terrible. He nodded with a grimace and left with his sister. It wasn't until the two figures disappeared into the boundary gate that Bai Xing raised his head and looked at the sky thousands of miles above Kaoj City. Thousands of miles above the sky, two men wearing Taoist robes and stepping on white clouds were looking at the huge city on the ground. An invisible shield of Genki shrouded them all around, blocking out the high-altitude hurricanes and low temperatures. One of the men said, "These people on Earth are indeed interesting and have invented many interesting things, but these alone are not enough to make heaven's heart flutter, right?" The man asked curiously to another person on the side, "Senior brother Tianqian, so what is Shang Tian's identity, that he can become a true disciple within 5 years, and can he still stir up troubles in heaven?" The man known as Senior Brother Tianqian stared at the endless city below him and said calmly, "This boy was born with the awakening of the heretic soul method, but this alone is not enough to become a true disciple of our Zixiao Palace. The real root is only known to the head teacher and the 5 elders. I guess it may be the reincarnation of a big shot in heaven. It's possible. I think he speaks in an old-fashioned way, and he doesn't look like an ordinary 10-year-old naughty boy." The man sneered, "It's ridiculous that Hua Lily treats the other party as a child, thinking that he can be played with by applause. That's not necessarily true. None of those true disciples are cautious and cunning. Hua Lily and Shang Tian are trying to catch up. I'm afraid it's the one from the Hall of Stars who also wants to explore Shang Tian's background." While the two were talking, a figure suddenly appeared slowly behind them. "You two, you have been watching it for so long, have you seen enough?" Tianxuan's eyes were shocked, and the fire all over his body surged. A huge 9-fire flame dragon shield had protected his body, and his junior brother sprayed out pieces of matter like a galaxy from his mouth, turning into dots of starlight and shrouding it around the body. "Who are you?" Tianqian looked at the man in front of him with a wary face. The man could appear behind him without anyone noticing, so he was obviously not an ordinary person. "Oh, I am the city lord of Kaoj City below me. You two have been looking over my head for almost half an hour. It would be remiss of me to just sit back and do nothing. But since there are 2 of you, 1 alive is enough." Xian Tian moved his eyes and flicked his fingers, and a stream of samadhi true fire shot towards the opponent's body like a meteor. The power of this samadhi true fire was enough to burn down a human town. But although his reaction was extremely fast, it was still too slow compared to Bai Xing, who had experienced hundreds of battles and had reached the ultimate level of sexual prowess. He could only feel an overwhelming force centered on the man in front of him, shooting out in all directions. The opponent's hand seemed to hold power enough to destroy the entire world, and he punched the junior brother next to him with a punch. His junior brother's protective magic weapon is called the Galaxy UN Magnetic Sword Formation. It is made from the power of the Earth's evil UN magnetic and combined with the heavenly star silver sand. It can stir up the UN magnetic and combine the heavenly star silver sand into tens of thousands of flying swords. You can also attack each piece of sand individually. Both offense and defense are extremely sharp. But in the face of the man's punch in the air, countless Tian-seeing silver sands turned into ordinary sand, and there was only a roaring explosion, including the Galaxy UNC sword formation, and the purple sky divine smoke on the junior brother's body, which prevented the defense. All the Tiangong Taoist robes exploded, and his junior brother had turned into a pool of blood, falling towards the ground. His entire body, including the golden elixir, was all exploded by Bai Xing's punch. And the samadhi true fire released by Tianxian, which was enough to turn a town into ashes with one blow, was already held by Bai Xing casually in his hand. He looked at the samadhi true fire that was struggling like a little snake, but it had no effect. Fire, cold sweat slowly flowed down Tianxuan's forehead. Bai Xing looked curiously at the samadhi true fire that was moving in his hand, as if it was alive, but was tightly held by him. He turned to look at Tianxian and said lightly, "So, what is Xixiao Palace?" To be continued, please search Piaotian literature, the novels will be better and updated faster. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xionglang Go. Chapter 478. While Bai Xing was interrogating Tianxian and obtaining information about Xixiao Palace, SpecialAbilities was also discussing how to deal with the Silver Shadow Empire. We have discovered that they are creating artificial wormholes, which means that what we have in front of us is just one of the enemy's troops. If what they said is true, and the 2 million spaceships in front of us are just part of the Silver Shadow Empire's troops, they can colonize across different star systems, and their number of troops will greatly exceed our previous expectations. What we lack most now is strategic depth. Once a fight breaks out, they can destroy the solar system and planets without scruples, but we can't, we only have one Earth. According to them, this is just the so-called 23rd Expeditionary Force of the Galaxy Corps. The most conservative estimate is that the total military strength of the Silver Shadow Empire is at least 50 million warships. And to be able to supply and manufacture such a large-scale fleet of warships, they own and occupy at least 20 planetary systems similar to the solar system. And this is still the lowest number, the actual situation may be worse. We must be prepared to fight against hundreds of millions or even billions of warships. Hundreds of millions of warships. Hearing this number, everyone in the staff couldn't help but groan. Being overwhelmed by the massive enemy fleet is what the staff is most worried about at present. You should know that 10 years ago, it took humans several years to build an aircraft carrier. Even now, with the existence of nanoworms, humans' productivity has greatly leaped forward. It takes a week to build a space battleship with a length of more than 10 kilometers. And such a space battleship with a length of more than 10 kilometers, excluding the existence of ability users, whether it is the power, energy, main gun, armor, or force field shield possessed by the battleship, such a war weapon has an overwhelming advantage over all ground and air forces. Now the entire human race has only more than 300 space battleships, all of which are 10-kilometer-long battleships. And before the gap between the battleships of both sides is clear, the Earth side will not easily send out these more than 300 spaceships. The current priority is how to deal with this fleet outside the solar system. We must annihilate them all at once, and then destroy the artificial wormhole they are creating to prevent the other side from coming to support. We must also figure out the specific scale of the Silver Shadow Empire, where they are, how far away they are from us. How much military power do they have? What level of technology has they reached? The most troublesome problem is that the Earth is best at not space battles, but ground and air battles dominated by people with special abilities. The universe is too vast. Thousands of kilometers and tens of thousands of kilometers in the vacuum of the universe are not as good as a hair. Most magic, martial arts and superpowers simply cannot fight across tens of thousands of kilometers. But tens of thousands of kilometers are completely within the range of space battleships. SpecialAbilities thought about it and thought that at present, in the space station, the only strong people who can play a big role are probably him, Bai Xing, Fang Yahuang and Emma. The rest of Jingguang, Yan Bei, Judy, and other powerful people with special abilities, if they are not matched with Fang Yahuang, Emma, and others, they alone are tens of millions of kilometers away. In the cosmic battlefield with hundreds of millions of kilometers as the basic distance, the effect is minimal. In addition, the most reliable thing is probably the super weapon left by Li Anping. 2 million warships, it is still within our solution range. SpecialAbilities frowned, but if it really breaks through tens of millions or even hundreds of millions next time, we must solve those wormholes as soon as possible to prevent their reinforcements from arriving immediately, and buy time for the Earth. So under his order, Emma and Jingguang set out together to intercept the opponent's spaceships that have already arrived. The Earth side will use the super weapon left by Li Anping to find a way to solve the opponent's 2 million space battleships and artificial wormholes at one time. But SpecialAbilities knows that even so, humans have only temporarily stopped the opponent's first attack. A greater test may be in the near future. At this time, he hopes that Li Anping can come back soon. 6 hours later, in the fleet of the Silver Shadow Empire. The current fleet is still floating outside the solar system. Of course, there are several explanations for the so-called boundary of the solar system. The fleet is currently located at the boundary of the planets in the entire solar system, which is about 50 astronomical units away from the Sun, which is about 70 million kilometers. Russell sat in the flagship restaurant as usual, looking at the endless space outside the window while tasting the food cooked by the robot chef. Every time he saw the vast universe that he could not explore in his lifetime, he felt excited. This may be the reason why he became a captain. At this time, the adjutant sent him the latest information about the Earth. This was the data about the Earth downloaded by the flagship intelligent computer before it was disconnected from the network. When he saw the content about superpowers, magic and martial arts on the Earth, Russell couldn't help laughing. He didn't expect that a civilization that had already walked out of its own planet would still believe in such unscientific things. What a strange race! Russell shook his head and continued to read on. He found that the other party's political system was the same as the Silver Shadow Empire, also an imperial system, but the other party's propaganda about its emperor was a bit exaggerated. He moves the orbit of the planet, raises his hand to create continents, and catches the stars and the moon, just like a god. However, the people on the other side seem to believe this kind of propaganda very much. What a boring earthling. At this moment, the adjutant's communication request suddenly rang in Russell's ears. Captain, we discovered an unknown creature in the center of the fleet. Unidentified creatures. Russell remembered Reinhardt's instructions to him, and was startled and said, "Is it the Zerg?" No, it seems to be a human." The next moment, a picture jumped out in front of Russell. It was Fang Yahuang wearing an interstellar mecha. Now Fang Yahuang has reached the 6th level, and his 33 caves have also reached the 3rd level. The distance he spans each time exceeds 1.07 million kilometers. In other words, although the distance he strides in one step is only 1 meter, for the surrounding space, his speed has exceeded the speed of light and reached 3 meters times the speed of light. However, this kind of long-distance crossing is obviously not unlimited. It took him more than 4 hours to get here from the direction of the Earth, stopping and going. Russell looked at Fang Yahuang in the picture in surprise and shouted, "Who is this person?" "From that battleship." "He is not one of ours," the adjutant said awkwardly, "he seems to be an Earthling." "How is it possible?" Russell shouted, "look for me quickly and find out how he appeared here." At this moment, Fang Yahuang released 3 palm-sized, dark round spheres from the mecha. The next moment he took a step forward, and his entire body disappeared. "What's going on? Where are the others?" Russell said angrily. "No, I don't know." The adjutant was also startled, and various instruments began to detect Fang Yahuang's previous location. "Captain, a large number of gravitons have been detected. What the other party left behind might be some kind of gravity bomb." Gravity bomb? Russell's impression is that the range of the Empire's gravity bomb is only a few kilometers, and the distance between battleships exceeds hundreds of kilometers. What's the use of placing the gravity bomb here? But what he didn't know was that the graviton bomb in front of him was made by Li Anping himself. He could produce gravitons in large quantities through mass energy conversion and void creation. There are only 10 graviton bombs in the entire Earth. In order to completely eliminate the expeditionary force at once, after careful calculations from the Earth side, Bai Xing was asked to take 3 of them and arrive at the specific coordinates to drop them. Russell frowned and said, "Send someone." Before he finished speaking, the terrifying gravity had covered the surrounding area at nearly the speed of light for more than 10 million kilometers. Except for things other than the speed of light, no matter could escape in this force field. The entire expedition team of the Silver Shadow Empire was reduced to wreckage by the huge gravity during this attack. The artificial wormhole, also known as the Stargate, gradually closed and dissipated because it lost the continuous control of the device. In front of Reinhardt, an official was reporting to him on the expeditionary forces situation. "Is that so? The committee has approved the colonization of Earth. Let them quickly occupy the local planet and use all their strength to find all information related to the Zerg." Suddenly, the other party's expression changed, as if he had received some new news. Reinhardt asked, "What's wrong?" "Sir, the expeditionary force has lost contact with us, and the Stargate has been closed." Reinhardt's eyes flashed, and various thoughts flashed through his mind. According to the intelligence sent by Russell, there is no civilization that can defeat them at all. Investigate what is going on, and, wormholes, are the coordinates still there? "It's still there," the official said. "If necessary, we can open the Stargate at any time. There may be some kind of accident over there. Do we need to send someone there?" Reinhardt thought for a while and said, "Inform the 16th, 17th, and 21st Expeditionary Forces and let them prepare. I will apply to the committee to send them all over." It is foreseeable that with the continuous deployment of Silver Shadow Empire troops, the battle with the Earth will become increasingly fierce. Although the technological level of the Earth is still higher than that of the Silver Shadow Empire, it is vast in territory and has a history of interstellar colonization for more than 5,000 years. The Silver Shadow Empire occupies hundreds of planets. Its war potential is far greater than that of the Earth. Incomparable. Just as the Silver Shadow Empire lacked effective methods to deal with the Zerg population, the Earth now faces the same population problem. The Silver Shadow Empire may be able to withstand hundreds of failures like the 23rd expedition, but Earth only has one chance. Just when the Earth was being targeted by 2 different forces, Li Anping finally slowly opened his eyes. To be continued. Please search Ocean Literature. The novels will be better and updated faster. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Man at the top of the food chain. Author, Xiong Lango. Chapter 479. Li Anping opened his eyes and found that he was lying on the desk and chair in the classroom, and the physics teacher on the stage was minding his own lecture. This is. Li Anping wanted to sweep the entire classroom aside, but found that he had to turn his head. It had been too long since he had seen things purely with his eyes, but at this moment, electromagnetic waves, infrared rays, thermal induction, sound waves, nanometer, all the insects left him, and he could only turn his head and look at the scene in the entire classroom. Tianquan University. Familiar and unfamiliar classmates, the classroom that had always been deep in his memory, just appeared in front of him. Beside him, a male classmate patted his shoulder and said softly, "Are you awake? We will play basketball later, are you going?" He could no longer hear clearly what the other person said next. His mind was filled with conflicts between past memories and present memories, as if he had a dream and finally woke up from the dream. It can't be a dream. Li Anping denied this possibility. Although the scene in front of him was a bit strange, he remained calm and rational as always, and he began to think about the current situation. I only remember that I was fighting 3 super soldiers from the 4 worlds. In the end, was the situation in front of me some kind of special attack? Or is this part of me now a fragment of consciousness shot down to a parallel time and space? Just as Li Anping was thinking about these things, suddenly, the conversation of the girls in front of him came vaguely to his ears. "Have you heard, Li Anping, police?" "Well, I heard that he was killed, by." "What a pity." "Yeah, if he still." Li Anping had completely lost his superhuman hearing at this time, and he heard the words of the other 2 people intermittently in his ears. At this moment, the bell rang, and get out of class was over. The students in the classroom dispersed without waiting for the teacher to say anything. The male classmate next to him patted Li Anping on the shoulder and said, "Are you going to play basketball?" Li Anping shook his head, said nothing, and walked to the location of the dormitory in his memory. He wants to go online now. Find out what kind of world is in front of you. Opening the web page, Li Anping began to browse the latest news one by one. Daxia, Ice Castle, Eastern Continent, Western Continent, everything was just like when he was in college. There was no difference at all. Li Anping started searching for information about superpowers, and all that came up were various novels, comics, and animations. Then he searched for Daxia Lonke, Xiaolikan, Songbang, Pluto, Wanke. But no, there is nothing. These people can't be found on the internet, and now Li Anping doesn't know any of the senior officials in Daxia. Is it a parallel world? Just when Li Anping felt a little confused, a black mobile phone rang on the table nearby. Li Anping took a look. Someone probably forgot his cell phone, so he ignored him and continued to collect information on the internet. However, the person who called the mobile phone seemed to be very persistent and never stopped. Then a boy walked into the dormitory. He glanced at Li Anping. The other person's appearance made Li Anping feel familiar. He should be a classmate in the same dormitory, but he couldn't remember the other person's name or identity at all. Memory, fading. Li Anping felt his memory ability. The data in my memory seems to be constantly being lost. At this moment, the other party asked strangely, "Your cell phone rang, didn't you answer it?" "My mobile phone." Li Anping looked at the black mobile phone on the table strangely. It had been too long since he had used a mobile phone. He thought for a moment, took the phone in his hand, and looked at the caller ID, which showed Teacher Wang. He answered the phone and heard a woman's voice from the other side. "Hello? Is it Chen Ben? Have you forgotten again? Today is the day of our appointment. Come over quickly. I will wait for you in the psychological consultation room. Hey, you seem to have made a mistake. Stop talking anymore. You must have forgotten it again. You'll know when you come here anyway. Beep, beep, beep." The other party had hung up the phone, and Li Anping suddenly reacted. He opened his wallet and took out his ID card. When he saw the content on it, his face turned pale and he felt extremely ridiculous. Chen Bin, next to his photo was a completely unimpressive name. He stuffed his ID card back and hurried out the door. "Hey, Chen Bin, if you go to the cafeteria, bring me a meal." Li Anping ignored him, closed the door directly, and rushed towards the psychological counselor in the school. Opening the door, a middle-aged woman wearing a white robe was sitting behind the desk waiting for him. "Are you here?" The middle-aged female doctor looked up at him and pointed to the sofa beside her and said, "Sit down first. I know you have a lot of questions now, but you should read these things first." He saw a middle-aged female doctor giving him a stack of newspapers and a pamphlet. Li Anping glanced at the other party in confusion, took the newspaper and pamphlet, and began to sit on the sofa to read. The more he looked, the more Li Anping's pupils shrank, and an absurd and incredible emotion kept rising in his mind. The middle-aged female doctor seemed to have known how the other party would react. While watching Li Anping read the news, she explained, 2 years ago, your family was involved in a car accident. You were the only one who survived. The driver escaped and you are still alive today, not caught. You also suffered from autism from that time on. A year and a half ago, a retired special soldier named Li Anping began to appear on the headlines of newspapers. He single-handedly killed many police officers, officials, and wealthy people. I don't know the specific situation, but many people on the internet regard him as an idol, thinking that he is a hero who kills corrupt officials, bullies, and eliminates harm for the people. From that time on, your symptoms began to worsen and you had hallucinations in your life. You often thought you were Li Anping and thought you had superpowers. Impossible. Li Anping stood up and stared closely at the newspaper. Li Anping's portrait also had a big headline, "Retired Special Forces soldiers broke into houses and killed people." The female doctor seemed to be used to Li Anping's reaction and said calmly, "In recent months, your condition has become more and more serious. You have even begun to experience intermittent memory loss." She pointed to the pamphlet that Li Anping threw on the ground and said, "You can look at the contents of that pamphlet. You wrote it yourself." Li Anping slowly picked up the pamphlet from the ground and began to read page by page. Daxialonke, superpowers, demons, lightspeed fists, all kinds of memories are recorded in the book. All the above are your own imagination, and it is very simple to verify, the female doctor said lightly. Can you tell me the principle? Can you tell me about any of the fantasy skills or technologies above? Principle and reproduce it in the real world. Li Anping sat on the sofa. He kept thinking in his mind, but he couldn't figure out the principles: electromagnetic drive, material reorganization, and quantum computing. He was so familiar with their effects and functions, but now he had no way to realize them. At this moment, the female doctor on the side spoke again, "Chen Bin, I need you to cooperate with my treatment. With your current condition, if the disease continues to worsen, it will seriously threaten the lives of other students. By then I have to recommend that the school expel you from school and you will also be sent to a sanatorium. Take a pill, take a shower, go back and have a good sleep. Stop reading news related to Li Anping." Li Anping sat on the sofa, his only trace of calmness and reason crumbling. On a sea of chaos, colorful bubbles kept emerging and floating into the air. In each bubble, various worlds are reflected, reflecting the joys and sorrows of countless people, as if each bubble represents the birth and death of countless worlds. The tide of chaos stood above this ocean, and in front of him was Li Anping, who fell into a coma. What appeared in the four worlds was a green ball of light the size of a fist, floating on the shoulders of Chaos Tide, and he asked doubtfully, "Is he dreaming?" "It's a dream, but it's not a dream," Tide of Chaos explained. "With Bai and his current power, every dream can be a real world, even if it is just an unconscious dream, with the information revealed when they turn over in sleep. A little bit of power is enough to build a real world." There is no difference between reality and dreams. I don't understand. If Bai wants to integrate Li Enping, why does he go to such trouble? Tide of Chaos laughed, can you kill your own thoughts? Whether human beings or any living thing, there are countless ideas, thoughts, consciousness, and choices being born every moment. We cannot kill these thoughts and these choices themselves. When two choices appear at the same time, we choose one of them only because of some coincidence, some probability, and some variable that convinces us. Even if this variable is very subtle. It's like what to eat for lunch or what to wear tomorrow. When we make a choice, there are always reasons, even if sometimes these reasons are hidden in our subconscious, even if we are not aware of it. The same goes for Bai and Li Enping. Chaos Tide's smile was full of excitement. The superposition of all Li Enping on countless timelines is the collection of all Li Enping, and the real Li Enping. Just like in any timeline, 10-year-old Li Enping and 20-year-old Li Enping, when they are superimposed together, they are part of the real Li Enping. They are like two different ideas and different choices, not separate, but it's one. Now, if one idea wants to convince another idea, it can only be with the passage of time and changes in external parameters that gradually turn the 10-year-old Li Enping into the 20-year-old Li Enping. Just like a snake crawling on the timeline, every point on the timeline is a part of the snake. The entire set of them is the real snake and cannot be viewed separately. Their current situation is similar to this. But even so, the power Bai possesses still gives him an absolute advantage. A flash of green light appeared on the body of the four worlds, and he said hesitantly, then what should we do? Green, don't you understand yet? Tide of Chaos laughed loudly, the game has already begun, even before most of the high-ranking beings in the multiverse are aware of it. Now, let us make this game that concerns gods and humans, time and space, and the balance of the entire multiverse more exciting, and let the seeds of chaos take root and sprout. To be continued, please search Ocean Literature, the novels are better and updated faster. Man at the Top of the Food Chain. Author, Xiong Lango. Chapter 480. Half an hour later, Li Enping slowly walked out of the counseling room, still recalling what the other person said in his mind. I am not Li Enping, I am Chen Bin. At some point, the memories of Chen Bin emerged in his mind. Both his parents died, but they left him hundreds of millions of assets. Even if he didn't work for the rest of his life, he could live comfortably. Although he didn't like to talk much, he was very popular among girls because of his billions of assets and handsome face. It can be said that apart from the death of his parents, Chen Bin is a complete winner in life. The two memories were entangled, making Li Enping feel very uncomfortable. As Li Enping walked towards the room, he began to think about the situation in front of him. If this is some kind of attack, then it means that my memory has also been affected, and all memories cannot be completely trusted. The female doctor said it well, if you want to prove the authenticity of past memories, the best way is to use some of them. But if the other party can really attack my memory, then it is only natural that I cannot use those abilities. Thinking of this, Li Enping suddenly remembered the conversation between the two girls in the classroom, took out his mobile phone, and began to search for information about Li Enping. In the past, he used his mind to directly search for information on the mobile phone network. He had not used his fingers to press the mobile phone to surf the internet for many years. Li Enping was a little uncomfortable for a while, but there was a lot of information about Li Enping in this world. He just typed the 3 words Li Enping on the search page, and countless news popped up. The top one was the news that the police had arrested the retired soldier Li Enping. Has he been arrested? Li Enping's mind began to flash all kinds of information. Although many surreal skills could not be used, many martial arts, fighting, infiltration, and even computers, intelligence collection and interrogation knowledge that he had learned were still there. According to the female doctor, this was because after he fell into fantasy, he also developed a certain academic syndrome, which enabled him to quickly learn any knowledge. It was precisely to satisfy his fantasy that he would learn all kinds of knowledge. Whether he said it was true or not, at least these things are useful now. 3 nights later, Danyang City Detention Center. A figure quickly approached the corner of the wall, waved his hands, and sent a hook to the edge of the wall. Then he grabbed the hook and climbed over the wall of the detention center. Li Anping had done enough preparations in advance. Not only the structure and personnel of the detention center, but also the location of the murderer Li Anping, as well as the equipment he needed, he had prepared in advance. Everything was done so easily. Everything was so natural that it made him more certain of his judgment. The memory in his dream was absolutely true. Even without the help of superpowers, even if his strength and speed were only in the range of ordinary people, he was still like a ghost in the dark night. Freely shuttled in the shadows of the detention center. In front of the deepest cell in the detention center, Li Anping took out the key he had just stolen and opened the iron door. A man was sitting quietly on a chair with his head down. Even the sound of the cell door opening did not cause any reaction from him. Li Anping walked slowly to the other person. Are you Li Anping? Li Anping, I gave you countless opportunities to choose. But you always choose the same, stupid path. A chilling voice sounded from all directions. Li Anping took a few steps back and looked at the man who was still bowing his head and asked, Are you talking? The man finally raised his head, with deep eyes and pale skin, and he looked exactly like Li Anping. Seeing the appearance of this man, Li Anping did not show any surprise or panic, but just said lightly, So, it was you who brought me here. The man ignored him and just said to himself, In this life, I gave you billions of wealth and an ordinary life. You could have lived happily, but you still chose to continue on the dark road. Li Anping frowned, didn't say anything, directly drew out the dagger at his waist, walked up, and then with a puff, stabbed the other person in the chest. Blood gushed out of the man's chest. He just smiled and spit out blood foam. Seeing the man fall in a pool of blood, Li Anping wiped the dagger and suddenly turned his eyes to the corner, where another man with the same appearance slowly walked out of the wall. Don't waste your energy. In this contest, the only result you can achieve is a draw or a loss. It is impossible to win. Can he use supernatural powers in this world? Li Anping frowned even more. In other words, I was dragged into this world by him. I just don't know how much of the original body I was dragged into, or am I just a copy? There is too little information, and the enemy in front of him has an absolute advantage, making it difficult for Li Anping to draw an effective conclusion. The other party ignored Li Anping and just said to himself, Do you want this life? Then I'll give it to you. The next moment, Li Anping's eyes went dark. When he opened his eyes, he was already sitting in a cell in prison clothes. Another memory surged from the depths of his mind. Li Anping, a special soldier who went home to visit relatives, also gained black abilities. He chose to eat those who were brain dead or about to be euthanized, and used this power to silently help others. But this was the beginning of his tragedy. After rescue, he continued to reveal his extraordinary strength and speed. It is even less likely that the country will tolerate such personal law enforcement. But he still insisted not to kill, but only to help the weak and arrest the criminals. The scarcity of food sources, coupled with the increase in the country's investment in armed forces, led to his eventual capture. Under the operation of the top management, he was ostensibly sentenced to death, but in fact he would soon be sent to the laboratory. The top management was very impressed by his superhuman speed and strength, self-healing, and especially his ability to not age. Interested? This is it, Li Anping pressed his head and asked. These are our memories. The man's cold voice reached Li Anping's ears. Human beings are chaotic, emotional creatures that can't even control their own bodies. Their existence is in the entire universe, not even a bacterium. The sacrifice made for them is meaningless. Li Anping took a few breaths, digested the memories in his mind and said, "That's why we need to guide them." "Guide?" The other party smiled, "Why don't you just put them in the bottle? Countless thousands of years have passed, and tens of thousands of civilizations in the universe have prospered and declined, but humans have never learned their lesson. Their lifespans are too short, making them completely unable to understand the reality of this universe. War, natural disasters, internal strife, verbal abuse, they always repeat the same mistakes their ancestors made. Take the East and West continents under your feet as an example. The resources they invested in weapons are enough to blow up the entire planet hundreds of times. If these resources were invested in the aerospace field, they would have solved the problems of territory, resources, and population long ago. This kind of violent, irritable, aggressive, selfish, chaotic creature. Is it really qualified to be the master of the multiverse? Li Anping said coldly, then modify them. If their lifespan is insufficient, make them immortal and have insufficient resources. Just go and occupy countless universes, remove their character flaws, and make them gods of the multiverse. Is such a creature still a human being? There are so many creatures in the multiverse. If we modify them, how will they be different from humans? The other party said slowly, and what you thought you were thinking, what you are doing now, have you never done this before? Human beings are always like mud. As the other party spoke, the cell shattered, and the surrounding scene changed again. It was a rice field under the sunset, and a young man was curiously picking up a ring. With this scene in front of him, countless memories flooded into Li Anping's mind again. In 1900, this was a chaotic era, and the entire Red Country had fallen into madness. Colonialism, feudalism, revolution, riots, ignorance, everything set this country with a long history on fire. In this chaotic era, in a rice field, a young man named Li Erniu got a ring. In the ring was an ancient demon, which gave him the ability to eat people and become stronger. From then on, the entire Red Country, no, it should be said that the entire world ushered in an unprecedented storm. At first, Li Erniu joined the imperial army, and he became the most powerful warrior in the imperial court. He led the army to defeat the 8-nation allied forces. However, after a series of treaties were signed and land was ceded, he was deeply disappointed with the decay of the imperial court. He killed the entire royal family in the capital by himself, and then fled south to the south of the Red Kingdom, where he met a group of people who claimed to want to make a revolution. Li Erniu was quickly attracted by the theory elaborated by the other party. Relying on Li Erniu's rapidly growing power, these revolutionary parties quickly overthrew the armed forces of the local government and massacred the foreign forces within the territory. In just 1 year, most of the Red Country fell into the hands of the revolutionary parties. The next year, the angry evil foreign forces launched a joint armed navy of the 16 nations. However, when they reached the territorial waters of the Red Kingdom, they quickly turned into huge ruins under Li Erniu's iron fist. The whole world began to be shocked by Li Erniu's power. Everyone began to know that in that distant eastern land, a demon had been born. But all fortresses are conquered from within. The sudden power and wealth soon corrupted the top leaders of the Revolutionary Party. Seeing how vulnerable human beings were under the corruption of money and power, and seeing the common people going back to the miserable days before, Li Erniu's eyes were filled with despair. At this moment, a man who claimed to be the Red Party found Li Erniu and began to tell him about the Communist Party's ideological system. Li Erniu was so shocked when he saw it that he killed all the corrupt senior officials at the Revolutionary Party dance that night. Then he joined the Red Party and vowed to turn the entire world into a communist society. But this time, he decided not to just be a thug, he wanted to complete global redization with his own hands. Thus, a Red Devil was born on the land of the East. To be continued, please search Ocean Literature. The novels will be better and updated faster.